In this video I'm going to demonstrate how to use the Moonstone Photoshop action. So looking at this photo here, I use the action to create this effect, and a few other examples I have here is using the same image, I just customized it a bit and I created this. Also went from this to this, from this to this. Okay, so let me close these down and start off with my photo. So there's a few things we need to check before we load up the action and click play. First things first, you need to set your photo layer as a background, so it should look like this. It should have the background text or lock symbol. So if you don't, if you open up your photo and it doesn't look like that, just go to Layer, New Background from Layer, and it sets it as a background. Now, still in the layer panel, head on up to this top right hand corner icon, go to panel options, and just down the bottom here, just make sure add copy to copied layers and groups selected. Click OK. Next, go to the image image menu, go to mode, and just check RGB color mode in 8 bits of channel is selected. And lastly, just make sure you're using a good resolution photos. So this one here, I've got 1600 by 2500 300 dpi. I would try to stick away with using photos under 1000 pixels because the quality of the effects seems to diminish the lower you go under 1000 pixels. So this is a good size. Anywhere from about 1500 to 3000 pixels is good. Okay, so I'll cancel that. So the first thing we need to do is create a new layer. Okay, and it needs to be called brush. It must be all lowercase, otherwise the action won't work. So click OK. So with the brush layer selected, I'm just going to hit B on the keyboard to get my brush out. I'm going to right click to bring up my brushes, and now I'm just going to select I've just got a soft brush here, and you can pick any color, doesn't matter. And so what you want to do is start brushing over your photo. Brushing over your photo where we want to concentrate all the effects around. So let me just make this a bit quicker and open up one that I've already. So in this Photoshop file here, I've already created my brush layer, and I have brushed around the edges of my subject. You don't need to make it this perfect. The edges you can see nice and clean. You don't need to make it that perfect. They can be a bit rigid, a bit rugged. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so with that done, we now need to load up the action. So we go to the window menu, go to actions, and the actions panel will pop up. Go to this top icon and go to load actions, and then select the Moonstone.a10 file. And here it is here. So just select, just twirl open the folder, select the Moonstone action, and all we need to do then is click play. So this action runs for around 3 to 4 minutes, so just click play on the action and come back to Photoshop in a few minutes time. I'm just going to fast forward this video to get to the result, and then I'm just going to go through every single layer and talk about all the ways we can customize the look of this. Okay, so the action's finished, and you can see here we have our default look. So what I'm going to do now is firstly minimize this actions panel. So click on that little arrow up there to minimize that, and we're going to head into the layer panel here and go through all these and talk about what they all do. So the very first thing you want to do after the action is complete is with the folder that's already selected, hold down Control Alt and just click on that arrow, and what it'll do, it just collapses all the folders. So this way it's just neatened up everything, because for some reason when an action's finished playing, it expands all the folders, which is a little annoying, but that's a quick tip to collapse them all. Okay, so up the top here we have our brush layer still hanging around. So if you wanted to run the action again, just shift select these layers, delete, and you run the action again. So even if you run the action again with the same brush layer, you're going to get a slightly different a slightly different result. All these sort of colored twirls would be more randomized, so you can play around with running the action multiple times. Next one down is add sharpening. If you just turn the one on, it might be hard to see, but it just adds a little bit of overall sharpening to all the elements. So if you're happy with the default look, just flick that one on to add a bit more sharpening. But if you want to move around all the layers and mess around a bit, I recommend sharpening afterwards. So we'll leave that one off. So this one here, matte shine, if I flick this on and off, you can see that it adds a little bit of a matte shine over the entire design. So if you want to mess around with that, you can double click on this layer, go to gradient overlay, and just mess around with the angle here, and you can adjust the scale to make that bit of shine a bit thinner. So we'll just keep it at that. Okay, so this folder here, color, we go inside here and we can mess around with, you know, the contrast, the brightness, and there's 10 different color variations we can play around with. So the top one here, overall saturation, if you double click on this, you can see that the overall saturation of the image has been increased a bit. So I'll bring it down, you can see that. So if you want to have the colors a bit more saturated, just increase this. So I think for this image we'll bring it up a bit higher, about there. Okay, now overall brightness, so if you double click on this one, you can play around with these handles here to make it darker, and with this one here to make it lighter. So I like to use this one just to make tiny little adjustments to, just like that. Okay, overall contrast, so this one you use the opacity handle here. So the default opacity is 10%. So if I just click and drag on this word opacity to the right, 100%, so that's way too much contrast. To the left, 0. So it's very sensitive, this layer. So just drag it up a little bit. I'm going to keep it about 16%. Looks good. This one here, if you want to keep the original colors of your photo, so if I just flick this one on, you'll see that all we have now is the original colors of our photo. I'll just turn this to normal. You can see all the colors there. If you turn that blend mode to color, it fills our image with those original colors. So that's a handy layer to use if you want to keep the original colors. So these folders here, the way these work is all you need to do is turn the visibility on for them. So you can go down the line here, flick them on to get a feel for which one might suit your photo. So this one, I might go with this one. And what you can also do is adjust the opacity of these folders. So if that effect's too strong, you can just lower the opacity down a bit, just like that. So I'm just clicking on this word opacity again. So it's 0, 100. So I'll just bring that up to about there. And you can also blend different folders together. So you can just flick on another one that was too strong, like this, and bring that opacity back down to 0, and, you know, bring it up a little. So you can blend the colors together, so you can create your own color looks. Okay, so that's the color options there. So let's go down into the Moonstone folder. So if I flick this folder off, this houses pretty much everything. So let's go inside, and we're going to go through all these. So the top folder here is glows over photos. So if I flick this folder on and off, these glows tend to cut in to the area that we brushed, so into the subject. So you can see the glow cuts over a hand a little bit there, a little bit here. So what I like to do is just flick these folders on and off as you're going down to get a feel for what they do as well. And you know, you don't have to use all these folders. You might find that, you know, if I turn this one off, that it looks better without those glows. You know, other things you can do as well. If I select this folder and you right click and go duplicate group, if I do that, it's made the glows much brighter. But you know, you can play around with the opacity of this folder. So if I drag the opacity to 0, I can start bringing it up just a little bit, so you can just boost the brightness of some of those effects. So I'm just going to delete that. So inside this glows folder, we've got 2 different layers here. So glow 2, you can see you can move that around, so you can offset the glows a little bit. You can also double click on these adjustment layers, mess around with the color and the saturation. You can see that there. And another thing to note is on all these folders you can see that they have a folder mask, these white boxes. So what these do, so say for example, if I duplicate this photo again, if I hold down Control J to duplicate it, you can see we've boosted brightness, but say for example I only want this area to the right to be really bright. So what I can do, if I grab a black brush and start brushing into here, I can erase some of those glows. So you can see I didn't want the glows over in this corner, so I brush black. But if you brush white, you can bring it back. So I can brush a bit more glow in there, black, raise that area. So you can do that with all these folders. You can sort of go down the line and brush away little areas you don't want, but we'll get into that as I go along a bit here. So we'll keep that. So angular lines, if I flick this one on and off, you can see that it overlays these rigid lines, very subtle, over our subject. So it just adds a little bit of detail. There's just 2 layers here that you can move around if you want. Also, the opacity of these layers are quite low, so this is 40%. So if I turn this up to 100, you can see the lines more prominent there. And again, use the folder mask if you don't want it to appear in certain areas. So, you know, I don't want it to appear over a face, so I'll just brush black into that area, and they're gone over a face. Okay, going down, we have our photo folder. So if I turn this one on and off, you can see it hides the area that we brushed. So you can see there's our brushed area, and it hides it all, and it reveals all the effects underneath, which is pretty cool. But I'll show you what we can also do by flicking off the photo layer. So going inside here, we have a layer called photo sharpening. So this just adds a little bit of contrast and a little bit of sharpening to your image, so you can flick that one on and off. Here you can play around with the color of your photo. So just double click on that, play with these handles. You can make subtle changes to the color. I'm just going to mess around a little bit here. The highlights, might try red. No. Yellow. Yeah, something like that. And change photo brightness. So if you double click on this, again, you can play around with these handles to change the brightness. Oops. So make it a little bit darker, a little bit brighter. So the idea is to match your photo with all the elements around your photo, so it's all seamless. Okay, so this one here is the main photo. So if you flick that one on and off, you can see that that's the big one. So what I like to do, as soon as the action's finished, I'll jump into this folder, into the photo folder down the bottom. And what I like to do is just flick this one on and off. We can see some cool, glowing spots and light streaks that appear underneath. But if I flick this on, it's kind of hidden. So what you can do, if you select this mask and grab a black brush, you can start brushing away areas of your photo. So see that I can blend my photo now better with the background. So I can go around the edges here. I can brush away her torso there. Her hand here, so it's like transparent. And what I like to do is keep flicking this on and off. It kind of shows you where some really cool effects are hidden. So I like this bit of glow here with the blue light streaks coming in. So I'll try to brush that away a bit more, and down through here. So just pay a bit of attention to the details hidden underneath and what. So around her hair here, there's some light. And you brush white to essentially undo or brush back in some detail that you want. Anyway, you get the point. So get in the habit of jumping straight into that layer and brushing away some of your edges, blending your photo with the background details more, because that's where the really cool effects are hidden away. So that's that. Now this layer below of highlighting orange, it's a quick way to randomize all the colors of your photo. So if you double click on this and just drag this hue slider around, you can see that you can randomize all the colors, which is pretty cool. So what I like to do, yeah, is just scrub through this, and you might let's have a look. I actually think the default colours are pretty good. You can adjust the saturation again, but I think we've got enough. And what you can also do is, if you want to apply just one colour, hit this one here, colorize. And now what you can do is again play with that saturation, but drag the slider again, and now we have just one colour. So if that's what you're going for, just remember that little checkbox there, colorize. Okay, so going on down, by default this one's turned off. If you flick it on, it just adds a little bit of random black lines here and there, so you might like that, might not. It's there, but it's off by default. Large broken up parts, so if I turn this one on and off, you can see that there's bits of parts that are cut out from your photo and just floating around. They're blurred out to make it look like it's closer to the camera. So if we go inside here, there's two layers. So this one here, I'll move this one around. See that? Don't forget, you can, if I hold down, just hit Control T. So I can rotate this, you can scale it. Hit Control J to duplicate it, make copies. Okay, so this one below, broken parts 2, by default it's turned off. If you turn that on, it's basically the same as parts 1, but it's just white. They're just white parts. So I'll just put that one there. Might not need it. No, don't need it. So this one here, dots, I'll turn this one on and off. Pretty self-explanatory. Again, like I said, if you don't want some of these effects, just turn their folders off. So if we go inside here, we have small dots. I'll move this one around. See those? If you want more of them, just hit Control J, or another way to duplicate a layer. If I just hold down Alt on this layer and click and drag up, I've just made a copy, so I can then move that, you know, up there. I can hold down Alt again, click and drag, and rotate it for a bit more variation. Okay, so this layer here, dots cloud, if I turn that one on and off, that essentially, wherever there's a cluster of stars, or dots we'll just call them, it creates a cloud around that area. So just for some atmospheric effects, if you want that to be more prominent, duplicate it, just like that. But we'll keep that just like that. I might just delete those two, probably a bit too much. So large dots, they're the most prominent ones. Again, you can duplicate them to create more. Okay, so going on down, we have speed lines. Now, what you'll want to do with these, if you go inside, you've got these two layers here. So what you want to do with these is just basically move them into place, or yeah, move them where you want. So I like to look at the general flow of the image. Like, for example, I'll rotate this one so it looks like, you know, she's shooting down from this angle here. And again, I've got another one here. You can see that's on a different angle, but if I hold down Control T, I can rotate that. I might just scale it down a bit, and I'll move that out here with the direction of her arm there. And what I can also do is create a copy. I might create a copy of number 1, and I'll move it down here, and I might just flip it horizontal. So if you go to Edit menu, Transform, Flip Horizontal, I might just rotate it on this angle, Control T to scale. Something like that. And if you want the, say for example, these top ones here to be a bit more prominent, just duplicate it where it is, and it will boost the brightness of it. Okay, so that's the speed lines. Glows under photo, these are just more glows. So again, flick it on and off, and if you feel that your photo suits it without it, just leave it off. If you go inside, again, just two layers, and you can use the adjustment layers here to recolor the glows. Glowing edge highlight, so if I turn this one on, What that will do is highlight all the edges of your photo with this white glowing line. So say if you brush away like I did all her feet, you can bring back some of that detail, that definition by turning that one on. And again, if you just want to appear in some areas, so say if I only want to appear on her jeans and her shoes, I can brush black into the mask to remove it everywhere else but that area. Okay, so this one here, goo, by default it's turned off. So if you turn the one on, it just adds a little bit of just random black, like a liquid effect that you can move around. You can scale it up. So it's there just to experiment with. You might like the effect, you might not, but it's there. If you want to change the color, you can just double click on this layer, go to color overlay, and just pick a different color. Okay, so cancel that. So these two folders here, large wavy glue lines and small wavy glue lines. So I'll turn these two off. Turn them back on. You can see it's all those glowing lines around our subject. Might just turn the goo off. So you can see that folder there. That folder there. So again, if you go inside these folders, there's some coloring options, and you can duplicate the layer to create more effects. It's probably a bit too strong, so I'll leave that one off. Okay, so going on down here, we have this folder by default, it's off, called Abstract Texture. If I turn that one on, you'll see that we have just more effects that we can add to the design. So I'll just turn this bottom one off. So I've got this one here, Abstract Texture. I'll move it out the side so you can see. So it creates this white wavy effect that looks kind of cool if you just move it around and overlay it in certain areas. I think that looks pretty cool where it is. Excuse me. Abstract Texture Exploded. It's the same texture, but it's just broken up a bit. So this isn't the best example of this photo, but generally it's more scattered around our photo. But what you can do, you can just scale that up just to make it look like it's broken up from our image and it's shooting out a bit. But we'll just turn that one off. This folder here, blurred diagonal lines, if I turn that one on and off, you can see it just adds those lines everywhere. So you can go inside here and just manually move these around. They're really just for atmospheric effects, but might just rotate that one down like that. Something like that. Okay, that's that folder. Random line detail. If I turn that one on, just add some really subtle random lines around the edges of our photo. So you can tick that one on if you want it. Soft background texture. This is very subtle. This, it just sits in the background there and adds some subtle cloud effects. So you can turn that one on and off. The background color layer. If you double click on this, you can simply change the color of the background. Okay, so for this one I'm just going to keep it black. And if you want to, say, export this image with a transparent background, just flick these two off, and the entire design then is on a transparent background. So you can save that out as a PNG and then drag and drop that onto another design. Okay. So lastly, I'll go back up to add sharpening. So and you can see that's just added. It's very subtle, but it's just sharpened up our subject there. And so that's it. If you have any questions, please email me and I'll help you out. If not, have fun using the action. Thanks.